Thank you for joining us for this sermon podcast from United Church on the Green, located in New Haven, Connecticut. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are invited and welcome. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to learn more about our open and affirming ministry at United Church on the Green, please visit our website at unitednewhaven.org. Thank you.
Would you pray with me? Oh, dear God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be with us all today. Amen. Well, whether we are in dark and closed-off spaces or reveling in joy at some fantastic surprise, God is here and God is with us. In birth and in death, in joy and in sorrow, God can be seen and God can be felt. If we have eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart that is open to God's power. As I have spoken of in the last 2 months, we believe in a God that pushes us and pulls us and absolutely prods us, and in many ways even pursues us. And God is also a God who responds to our invitations when we call God, God, come and be with me. In this reading from the Gospel of Luke, we learn once again how it is our God responds to invitations. And God is, as I said to the children, a boundaryless God. Even if we draw boundaries around one another, which we shouldn't, but if we do, God's grace extends over even those we unnecessarily deem unworthy of this gift, or one who is so very different from us and from our beliefs. This is the power in the account of the centurion and Jesus. In this gospel story, there is much that we do not understand because of where we live in the times that we are and of our own culture. But in Jesus' era, the world was inhabited and ruled by class. As we do know, Jesus spent time with what could be called by some the wrong people, the marginalized, the disenfranchised, the despised, the poor, and the broken. The centurion was way above Jesus' class and was a mighty man, you see, of power. He was a man to be feared. As Eric Barreto says, a centurion is not your typically friendly neighbor. Centurions are the sharp edge, you see, of Rome's power, a cruel force that dominated the people of Israel. Later, this very same empire will order the execution of Jesus. From the perspective of many of Jesus' neighbors, the centurion represents everything that was wrong about the world. And remember, as David Luce reminds us, Rome was still in charge, still occupying a great part, if not all of Israel, still enforcing its will upon Israelites with all rank and all stations, no matter who they were. Rome was in charge. Which means that this centurion is one who, and he admits this himself, is used to giving orders in the Roman army and having those orders obeyed. He is then one of those who is responsible for Israel's oppressor. So the centurion would not be our friend. The centurion, however, believes that Jesus might do the impossible and stave off the forces of death. He seeks Jesus' help to come to his deeply loved and cherished servant, who was ravaged by some kind of unknown illness. The illness we don't know, but it didn't matter. I expect the centurion's whole life had taught him that authority is given, and sometimes authority is earned. No doubt he recognized in Jesus both of those kinds of authority. And so in spite of that which might keep him from doing so, he turned to Jesus when he needed him the most. Now, Jesus' authority was not one which obviously we know commanded armies. Rather, he had the authority to cast out sickness and death, suffering and pain. And it's important for us to hear the centurion clearly saw that and believed in it. Because there was bitter hostilities between Israel and Rome, one would think that Jesus would have no part in healing the centurion's servant. Jesus probably had quite a few reasons to resist helping this centurion. And yet, Jesus the peasant, the Galilean subject of Rome, is there for the centurion and does not hesitate in spite of the fact that entering a house of a Gentile could potentially render him unclean. But these boundaries did not stop Jesus. And so he heads in haste to the centurion's house. And on the way, he's stopped by a local Jewish teacher who says to him, "This centurion is worthy of having you do this for him. You know, he has helped build our synagogue." And then another centurion's friend comes along and says, wait, don't go into his house. Don't do that. This man is so full of humility and subservience, even though he is a Roman lawyer, used to handling orders. He says, "Don't come in." Well, Jesus was amazed by this centurion's faith, marveling that such faith was found among God, not even as great as he sees in God's chosen people. Not even in Israel, he said, have I seen such faith. This is a bit shocking, is it not? Why would Jesus praise a foreigner, a Gentile, a centurion so highly? Why was it? It was because this centurion demonstrated his faith in such a profound way. So what was so special about the centurion's faith of this story? He believed that Jesus had the power to heal people and to heal communities. And he saw how he was able to reach out to the poor, to the marginalized and the sick, and he had power over the forces of death. The centurion was in the know, as he knew about Jesus. He had seen and heard all that Jesus had done, and he believed. As Eric says again, Jesus' power overturns the world upside down and inside out. That a centurion would recognize the power in the very essence of faith. So hear these words. Faith is seeing the world with God's eyes. To see the possibilities of a world renewed by God's love and by God's grace. That is such a good definition of faith. Let me repeat it to you again. Faith is seeing the world with God's eyes. To see the possibilities of a world that is renewed by God's love and by God's grace. His faith was bold, and he trusted Jesus, and he only asked him, "Jesus, just come and say a word." This centurion, who has no name other than his title, was full of humility and full of empathy. He was a good man. And it's interesting that we have no idea whether he ever became a disciple or not. And it doesn't seem as though Jesus or Luke was even interested. The only thing that mattered was that Luke recorded it, and it is a story that we can all hear today, and God is still speaking. I believe all people are free to be made whole by God. And we are called to meet all people where they are in all of life's circumstances. Boundaries of any kind need to be demolished. So the question we have before us today, knowing how strong the faith of the centurion was, is what does that say to us and to our faith? Believers and questioning believers, faith can come to those less likely to even receive it, just as it did to the centurion. It is there for all of us. Can we be humble and full of empathy? Can we see that God is present in our lives, wherever it is that we might be? Can we see the world through God's eyes and work toward and celebrate how the world can be radically renewed by God's love and by God's grace? That can happen and be given to all of us as we invite God into our lives, but it can start right now inside of us. May it be so. Amen.